Good morning students. Today we start a new chapter, Interface Python with MySQL. In a previous class we learned how we will install MySQL connector or MySQL DB in a computer. And next is connecting to MySQL from Python. After installing Python's MySQL connector, you can write Python scripts using MySQL.connector library that can connect to MySQL database. And the steps for creating database connectivity applications are: step 1 is start Python. Step 2, import the package required for database programming. So first we have start Python, then we import the packages we required for data programming, and for this we write the code import mysql.connector or import mysql.connector as an alias name, as suppose I have taken SQL Tor. Now step 3, open a connection to MySQL database. For connecting MySQL database with Python, we use connect function. Connect function is used to establish a connection to a MySQL database, and the syntax is connection object equals to mysql.connector.connect, and connect function requires 4 parameters. First is host name, user is the username on MySQL, and password is the password of the user, and host name is the database server host name or IP address, and database is optional, which provides the database name of a MySQL database. For example, now we import, step 2 is import mysql.connector as SQL Tor. Then here we have taken mycon as a connection object. Then mycon equals to SQL Tor.connect, and we pass host as a local host, user equals to root, password equals to mypass, and database equals to test as our parameters in connect function. The above command will establish a connection to MySQL database. Now, if Python reports no error, it means you have successfully connected to MySQL database. You can also check for successful connection by using a function is_connected, and this function is used to check the successful establishment of connection. And the way for using is_connected function is, if mycon is the connection object, dot is_connected. Now if it returns true, it means connection is established, and if it returns false, then it means connection is not successful. Now step 4, create a cursor instance or an object. A database cursor is useful control structure of a database connectivity. Normally when you connect to a database from within a program, then the query gets sent to the server, where it gets executed, and the result set, the set of records retrieved as per query, is sent over to the connection to you. But you may want to access the retrieved data one row at a time. But query processing cannot happen as one row at a time. So we use a special type of control structure called database cursor that gets the access of all the records retrieved as per query and allow you to traverse the result set row by row. So database cursor is a special control structure that facilitates the row by row processing of the records in the result set, that is the set of records retrieved as per query. And for this we use a cursor function. This function is used for creating cursor object and the syntax is cursor object equals to connection object dot cursor. For example, we are creating a cursor object. Cursor equals to mycon is a connection name, so mycon dot cursor. By using this, we established a database connection through a connection object mycon. And then we created a cursor object using the same connection object. Now step 5, execute SQL query. Once you have created a cursor, you can execute SQL query by using a execute function with cursor object, and the syntax is cursor object dot execute, and we pass SQL query as a parameter in execute function. For example, we have already created the cursor object named cursor dot execute, and we are passing query select asterisk from data as a parameter in execute function. The above code will execute the given SQL query and store the retrieved records, that is the result set, in the cursor object named cursor, and which you can use in your programs as per your requirements. Now step 6, extract data from result set. If you have retrieved records from the database using SQL select query and need to extract records from the retrieved result set, once the result of query is available in the form of a result set stored in a cursor object, you can extract data from the result set using the. Now step 6. For extracting data from result set, you can extract data from the cursor object by using any of the functions. First is fetch all method. This method will return all the rows from the result set in the form of a tuple containing the records. If no more rows are available, it returns an empty list. Now, how to fetch all the records of a table at runtime? For example, first of all, we have created a MySQL connector. Then we establish a connection by using a connect function. Then we create a cursor instance, myCursor equals to mydb.cursor, and then we execute a query, myCursor.execute select asterisk from student. Then after creating a cursor object and executing a query, we can fetch the records by using a fetch all function. So we write my records equals to my cursor. Here we are taking a variable my records. After fetching the rows one by one, we are storing them in my record variable. So my records equals to my cursor dot fetch all, and as we are fetching all the rows, so we are using a loop here. For x in my records, print x. So the fetch all method will return all the rows from the result set in the form of a tuple containing the records. Now next is fetch one method. This method retrieves the next row of a query result set and returns a single sequence or none if no more rows are available. By default, the return tuple consists of a data returned by the MySQL server converted to Python object. And next is fetch many method. Fetch many method. This method fetches the next set of rows of a query result and returns a list of tuples. If no more rows are available, it returns an empty list. And now program how to fetch one record of a table at runtime. So first of all we import the MySQL.connector, then we establish a connection, and then we created a cursor object by myCursor equals to mydb.cursor. Then we execute a query myCursor.execute, and we pass the query in execute function. Select asterisk from student is the query. Then we are fetching one record at a time. So here we use fetch one function. Row in after fetching one row, we are storing them in row variable. So row equals to myCursor dot fetch one. After that we want to display data, so we using a loop here for a while row is not none, print row, and then row equals to myCursor dot fetch one. It means we are now we are fetching the next row. So in this way you can use fetch method, and if you want to use a fetch many, then you can write myCursor row equals to myCursor dot fetch many, and the number of rows or records you want to set want to retrieve, you can mention them or pass them as a parameter. So suppose we want to fetch 4 rows, then we write row equals to myCursor dot fetch one, and we pass myCursor dot fetch all, and we pass 4 as a parameter. Now next step is clean up the environment. After all the processing, the final step is to close the connection established, and for this we use a close function, and the syntax for writing the close function is connection object dot close. For example, we have a connection mycon, so mycon dot close. In this way you can close the connection you have established earlier, or clean up the environment. So in this way you can establish a connection with MySQL. So thank you.